Why do you need access to the breeding index?
So I can return the sisterhood to its values.
With work still happening behind the scenes on the final story in the Paul Atreides arc, the latest update finds Denis Villeneuve teasing when Dune 3 might start filming. He mentioned that he's in the writing zone right now, and adapting Frank Herbert's work takes time. When asked about a potential filming start date, Villeneuve hinted that 2026 seems like the most likely year. He also reiterated that Dune 3 would be his final film in the franchise. So, here's everything we know about the upcoming movie. In an interview, Denis Villeneuve discussed his vision for the next installment in the Dune franchise, stating, "Like Herbert did with Dune Messiah, I think it'll be a great idea to do something completely different. The story takes place about 12 years after where we left the characters at the end of Part 2. Their journey, their story is different this time, and that's why I always say that while it's the same world, it's a new film with new circumstances." This approach suggests a fresh take on the narrative, highlighting how the characters have evolved and adapted to their new circumstances over the years. With Legendary confirming that development on the Part 3 script is underway, it's only a matter of time before Warner Bros. Gives the green light for Dune Part 3. While Denis Villeneuve is eager to complete the story of Dune as a trilogy, Warner Bros. Has yet to officially approve it. However, given the overwhelmingly positive reaction to Dune Part 2, it seems likely that the studio will move forward with the movie sooner rather than later. The pieces are falling into place, and it's just a matter of time before we see the full vision Villeneuve has for the trilogy come to life. Villeneuve's Dune movies are both faithful to Frank Herbert's original novel and bring a fresh, creative spin to the story. With Dune Messiah confirmed as the next adaptation, the franchise's future is looking brighter than ever. Much like the book, the third film will be quite different from the first two, focusing on the aftermath of Paul Atreides' victory on Arrakis as he becomes the new emperor of the known universe and launches a holy war against the remaining great houses that oppose him. Dune Messiah is a direct sequel to Dune, but it takes the story in a different direction with a new cast of characters, though many from the original book will still be part of the narrative. Characters like Lady Jessica and Gurney Halleck, who weren't in the novel, might still make appearances in Villeneuve's film. The most prominent returning character will be Paul Atreides, now played by Timothée Chalamet, who faces a new set of challenges as he navigates his new role as Emperor. The explosive ending of Dune Part 2 sets the stage for Dune Messiah, as Paul takes control of the Imperium, launching a holy war against any houses that oppose him and the Fremen's quest for dominance. This marks a significant shift in his character, illustrating the corrupting power of absolute rule. The story in Dune Messiah is set years after the first book, with Paul struggling to balance his duty to his wife, Princess Irulan, and his love for concubine Chani. This internal conflict is at the heart of the story, defining much of the drama and setting up an intense, character-driven narrative. Denis Villeneuve has been clear that Dune Part 3 will be his last film in the franchise. This decision might be seen as just a director wanting to move on to other projects, but it also reflects the complex nature of Frank Herbert's sequels. Dune Part 3 will adapt Dune Messiah, which ostensibly wraps up Paul's storyline, but the story continues in Children of Dune. As the series progresses, the challenges of adapting Herbert's dense and philosophical narratives become more apparent. By the time we get to God Emperor of Dune, the story shifts focus to Paul's son Leto II, who has merged with the sandworms to become a colossal and seemingly immortal entity. This kind of premise would be a tough sell for most audiences and presents significant storytelling challenges, as much of the story revolves around heavy philosophical themes that don't translate well into Hollywood blockbusters. Additionally, the later books jump thousands of years into the future, which could make it harder for audiences to keep up with the timeline. Villeneuve's decision to conclude the series with Dune Part 3 acknowledges these complexities and aims to provide a satisfying end to the story while avoiding further narrative hurdles. Each of the Dune stories builds on the theme of the danger of blind faith, which makes Dune Part 3 one of the most critical parts of the entire Dune canon. By the time Dune Messiah begins, Paul Atreides isn't just a Messiah-like figure predicting the future, he's the Emperor of the known universe. This leads to a religious fervor among his devoted followers, particularly the Fremen, who are ready for a war that could cost billions of lives. With control over his ancestral memories and visions of the future, Paul tries to steer humanity away from destruction while also evading assassination attempts from rival royal houses who resent his power. Princess Irulan is Paul's consort, a political necessity to keep him on the throne, but she opposes him, even trying to block Chani from bearing Paul's heir since Paul refuses to let Irulan have his children. Each Dune story builds on the idea of the dangers of blind faith, making Dune Part 3 one of the most significant installments in the Dune series. One of the biggest changes between Dune Part 2 and Herbert's book is Chani's character, who Villeneuve gives a whole new sense of agency and frustration with Paul's conquest ambitions. In the original story, Chani is more aligned with Paul's rise to power, believing in the prophecy that he's meant to lead the Fremen to paradise, which is why she stays with him through the war. But Villeneuve flips this aspect of her character, having her run away on a sandworm at the end of Dune Part 2. In the book, Chani remains by Paul's side despite his political marriage to Princess Irulan, but that seems increasingly unlikely in Villeneuve's film. This change will have major implications for Dune Messiah, as the relationship between Paul and Chani is in a much different place. In the book, Chani sticks with Paul despite the political marriage to Irulan, but that looks less likely in Villeneuve's film. It's not clear exactly how this love triangle will play out in the movie, but it's definitely going to be a lot different from Herbert's original take on their relationship. Princess Irulan, the daughter of the old Emperor Shaddam IV and Paul's wife, adds a layer of complexity to the mix. While her character didn't show up until Dune Part 2, she quickly became one of the series' most interesting, using her Bene Gesserit upbringing to manipulate her father's politics and work her way up the family ladder. For Paul, their marriage is mainly a strategic move to solidify his claim to the Imperium and legitimize their future child. But Irulan's motivations run much deeper. Irulan's future in the Dune franchise is pretty complex and intriguing. If Villeneuve continues beyond Dune Messiah, she could very well become the next central character. She's essentially a prisoner of war stuck in a loveless marriage with the sole goal of producing an heir to maintain her family's control over the Imperium, especially since Paul wants to have children with Chani instead. It's a captivating, very political character arc that's quite different from her role in Dune Part 2, but this is where her character finally reaches her full potential. And let's not forget that Alia's brief appearance in Dune Part 2 hints at her much more significant role in the future of the franchise. Conceived shortly before the Harkonnens' invasion of Arrakis, she's notable for having the collective consciousness of the Bene Gesserit housed in her young mind. Anya Taylor-Joy portrayed Alia in a flash-forward in Dune Part 2, and with the extensive time gap before Dune Messiah, it's likely she'll return to reprise her role. Alia becomes crucial in Dune Messiah, where she plays a key part in upholding the legacy of House Atreides in the shadows and engages in a secretive assassination plot. This reflects one of Herbert's strengths, the sprawling, generational story that captures the complex dynamics of the Atreides family. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.